Welcome. Night 2 of Rachel and Gabby, or I'll call them Gachel. We have a male pageant, 2 one-on-ones, and an early villain. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you don't miss a single episode. Welcome to Reality TV Therapy with me, Dr. Diane. Welcome back to night 2. Let's talk more about this big group of men that we have because we didn't have a bigger elimination in night 1. But we still have plenty of men to choose from. The night starts out and it's raining and girls just want to have fun. I don't know about you, but what do you think? Is there a different way to get to see men in their six-pack abs, or did it feel like it was a little bit too much? I thought it was all in vain because we've seen this show before. But let me know in the comments. And did we really need those little black boxes? I'm not so sure. But the men go along with the male pageant, or call it mangent, and they're really good sports. And Gabby and Rachel try to make it look like a talent show, wink wink. They did have some questions and we saw some talent, if you want to call pouring spaghetti sauce all over yourself. But what did you think about Jacob? I thought he was cute with his little black glasses, asking questions about mortgages. I thought there were some unique standouts. Now, who also stood out for me on the opposite side was Chris. His singing dropped like a lead balloon, and if you don't know what to think, all you have to do is pay attention to Gabby's expression. Because you don't actually need to be a body image expert to just read on Gabby's face what she thinks about all of these men. What do you think? But after the male pageant is over, Rachel and Gabby are in the awkward position to have to choose their top 6. And I do think that the women are being strategic in all of their choices because the 6 that they chose, either because they liked them or they wanted to eliminate them. Here, the evening, the women come back all dressed up. I really did love both of their dresses. Avon, who I think we're going to see a lot more of. They didn't really show us much. Logan kisses both Rachel and Gabby. One can say, oh, Logan, how long are you going to be able to do that? Brandon, a little bit snoozy with talking about all of his travels. Then we have Johnny, who has a little bit more confidence, shall we say. And Colin, also a little bit snoozy, talking about Harry Potter. The point is, men, it's time to step it up. Time is so precious. You hear that again and again and again. You have to make the most of it. And I didn't feel like Rachel in particular was feeling it. And Jason, who's a super cutie, and I think Jason's going to go far, he tells Rachel, I'm really here for Gabby. I appreciated the honesty, but this is what I don't like about this season, right? These awkward moments where we've got men and women having to choose who they're interested in. Poor Rachel, she's just not having a good night. But she is excited that Logan has kissed her. He's kissed Rachel too. But Gabby graciously allows her best friend to have this guy because she can give her date rose to Johnny. And Rachel gives her one rose to Logan. And so there you have it. Now next up is the coveted first one-on-one dates. These are usually spectacular, as we saw last night. Our first one-on-one, Rachel and Jordan V. Elaborate date, I might say, right? They first show up. She's got a vintage, beautiful blue convertible car. And for Jordan, who loves old cars, he's a drag car racer, this is perfect, right? But right here is where Jordan misses it because he doesn't take the keys and take charge. And I got the sense that you can see if you follow Rachel's body language, she's like, oh, I'm driving. And then the poor thing, her hair is whipping around all over and you think he should be driving, not because I want to be sexist, but I just think that Rachel's the type of woman who wants a man to take charge, and that was a miss for me. Second miss on Jordan is they're in the zero gravity flight. Cool date, I might add, because we've seen this before with Nick and Vanessa, remember? But this could be a cool opportunity for them. They both like speed, so to speak. But Jordan's a little bit nervous, right? He is anxious. And again, I got the feeling that we could see Rachel just sinking a little bit. She tries to make the most of it. They're kissing while they're flying around, but I just didn't feel that chemistry. It didn't feel authentic to me. And then finally, when we get to the dinner portion of the date, she's looking beautiful. They're walking into this elaborate theater. Everything's set up for them. I just never heard a single compliment like, my God, you look gorgeous. Look at you. I'm so excited. I'm so lucky to be here. It really felt like the conversation was really all about Jordan. And I think that was the third and final miss. Now, what I'm hearing in the comments are people are saying, well, look at Rachel. She says she wants a man who is vulnerable, one who opens up to her. Then Jordan opens up to her and she says bye-bye. But I actually didn't see it that way. I didn't see it that way at all. I saw that Jordan played it very safe. I think he's a nice guy, but just not as manly as Rachel needs. And the conversation, where did it go? Well, he talked about his parents' divorce. There was a lot put on him. But in terms of level of vulnerability, level of share, what was missing for me was the connecting comments, the looking at Rachel, asking her follow-ups. There was something missing there for me. So this date was incredibly flat. And I was not surprised at all. And I thought it took tremendous courage for Rachel to say, I'm sorry, you're not going to get my rose. And let's face it, we're going to need to move through these guys quickly. So if she just kicked the can down the road and said, I'll get rid of him later because he's a nice guy, I think those things end up mounting. And she is sending an important message that if I'm not feeling it for you, you're going home. Now, people asked me in the comments, what about the fact that what if Gabby's interested in Jordan and Rachel sends him home? I'm sure they consulted with one another. We see at one point Gabby's lying in bed. I'm sure they make a phone call. She says, hey, I'm thinking about sending Jordan home, because you see her talking to the producers. And they say, let's consult with Gabby. And she says, fine, send him home. I'm not interested in him either. So I am most impressed with these two women handling a very difficult situation together. And I think they're consulting on absolutely everything. And I think they're doing a wonderful job in a very awkward position. But let's face it, nothing worse than dancing with someone you're really not into. And that's even weirder than Rachel sitting alone in a lobby listening to the band. So kudos to Rachel. I think that was the best and only move that she had. Now, let's talk about what's going on in the house, because this is where we have the villain kind of brewing. And it's Chris. Chris, who is talking about potential fantasy suites, day 4. Okay. What Chris is bringing up for me as I'm watching him listening, I don't know how Christian he is, because he doesn't state that he's a strong Christian and these are his beliefs. But I'm picking up on Luke P, some narcissism vibes at the mangent. He was the guy who said, I'm a leader, I'm an athlete, I'm all these things, and I'm a singer. And he's just not tracking how he's affecting other people. So now the men are calling him out and saying, listen, this just isn't cool. He's having this whole conjecture, this conversation about what he might do. And by the way, I'm going to be in the top 4. Wow, how presumptive. This again reminds me of Luke P from Hannah Brown's season, where Luke said, if I sleep with you, I wouldn't be able to forgive you if you slept with other men. Ah, Chris. So all the guys, I do appreciate, they've watched the seasons before, they know what goes down, and they feel a level of responsibility, which I'll get to later. Now, I did love in that moment, we're going to get a lot of quotes from Nate, because he said, you love. You can't have preconditions to love. It's a form of control that a lot of men don't realize that damages good women. Loved, loved, loved this quote from Nate, because Chris doesn't realize that he's coming across very controlling about what he would do, and he's thinking strategically, but that's not the same as thinking relationally. And by the way, it says that he's a mentality coach. I'm not even sure what a mentality coach does, but it's these types of guys, these motivational speakers before. We've seen these kinds of guys. They're big talkers, but they're not good listeners. All right, now this brings me to our next one-on-one with Gabby and Nate. And this is a good date, I think, because you can see that Gabby is interested in Nate. He's intriguing to her. But the one thing that I'm going to say is I think she's holding herself back. I want to hear what you think. And let me tell you why I think that. So I think that Gabby is very interested in Nate. They have a wonderful time together. There's lots of great chemistry. He's a smart guy. He's an engineer, but he has like a childlike quality to him. He's got that really sweet smile, and there's just something so endearing. Plus, it doesn't hurt that he is tall and really good looking. But when we get to the hot tub, they give each other those funny little voices, which I think is endearing.
How old are you? You seem so mature.
I'm 33.
Never met a mature man.
I love your voice. That you all the time, too.
We get to the dinner portion of the date, and Nate discloses that he has a 6-year-old daughter. What's not to love, right? And Gabby is touched by this. They both share a tear. We can see that Nate is clearly enamored with his daughter. And when Gabby says, "Tell me about her," and he says, "She's like coffee." So sweet. I loved, loved, loved hearing about Nate's daughter. But here's the thing, and why I say that Gabby's holding herself back. She says, if you listen to her, "I'm not so sure if I'm ready for that." And while she loves that he has disclosed this is where we get to Gabby's family. She does disclose, as we've known, and I've said this in my previous 2 videos, that she's not in a close relationship with her own mother. She's so close with her father, and so she picks up on that loving relationship with Nate and his daughter. But because of that, she's not so sure that she's ready to be a mother. And also remember, Gabby's dated a ton of men, and I trust her to know. So this is a lot of information for Gabby. Of course, she's not ready to leave Nate, and we see him in the previews coming forward. But this is why I think that Gabby's just holding herself back a little bit, because she's not so sure if she can step into that responsibility. Okay, so what was your favorite part of the Nate and Gabby date? The one moment that was just precious was that little impromptu dance. We don't need a band. We don't need anything, where he twirls Gabby and he pulls her into them. And this is the kinds of dates that one loves to watch, at least I do. So that is the kind of connection that I think is really special. Now, after that, we get to the rose ceremony, and the men join together, which I think was a really excellent strategy. There's 4 or 5 of them. Bring Rachel and say, we need to talk about Chris and what's going on in the house. And there is power in numbers. So I think this was very strategic and really well done. They simply lay out exactly what Chris was talking about. And they showed Chris in the kitchen. He kind of knows something is going on. Rachel discloses to Gabby. The 2 of them together say, let's handle this. I love this. I love that they're decisive. They bring the men back together and say, they bring Chris back in and say, we'd like to talk with you. Chris is very defensive. I want to speak for myself. I don't want secondhand information. And when Rachel says, listen, dude, you just need to be apologizing right about now. But he doesn't seem to get it. Chris in his coaching, speaking like version, just talks over both of these women, and they're not having it. So Rachel and Gabby say, I think we can walk you out. Where do I go? I don't know. Go that way. And then, of course, the gall of Chris to come back in. This was a Luke P move. Do you remember when Hannah B says, Luke, you're done. You need to leave. And he comes back and she has to move the podium. And here is the moment that I love, because Nate stands up first thing. Rachel and Gabby come back and say, wait a minute. You're calling a powwow, but we've asked you to leave. This conversation's over. And Nate is right there, doesn't skip a beat, and says, I think we've heard enough. And escorts them out, which was the perfect thing to do. Let's not give more airtime to the villains. This is what I loved. So let me summarize with my reality check looking in the mirror. You either have to make most of your time or you're out. Because both Rachel and Gabby are strategic. Nothing's getting past these two women. They call the guys up. They're questioning their connection with them. They want to figure out sooner than later. And if they don't feel like you have done enough to make that connection, you're out. And Chris is an example of what not to do.
For the last time,
Yep.
no!
Don't call women females, and don't get ahead of yourself. Because the whole thing about love and falling in love, it's a process. And the men said, listen, if you happen to be so lucky to get to the fantasy suites, it's because you're falling in love. And that's what we miss here. The people who come in and try to plan ahead, they're forgetting that this show, I know it's about drama. I know parts of it are about ratings, but part of it is about falling in love. And the leads take this very seriously. And they are looking for the person who is the most authentic. So I loved this episode. I felt a little bit bad for Rachel that it wasn't totally her night. But I think together, these two women can tackle anything. And the reality check is, if you're going to go all in and make the most of every minute that you have.